Good day. Welcome to our Community Infinity Safety Awareness podcast. We bring you a different topics which really near and dear to our heart. Before we go further, let's acknowledge we are on Treaty Land 6 and acknowledge the people who have lived before us, have done a wonderful job and created and left us a wonderful land where we are surviving and striving. In present age, the kids are always involved in computer where we have less physical activities. And they're based like more electronic, computers could be Nintendo, could be Xbox, PlayStation, anything. And then we are talking about how to keep them motivated, keep them involved in the physical activities. So we got the opportunity to speak to Minister Schow, who has been a Minister of Tourism and Sport, and he took the position in June 9, 2023. Welcome, boss. Thank you, Joseph, for taking your time to come and talk to our viewers. Thanks a lot.
Well, it's great to be with you. Thank you for having me.
Joseph, before I go further, you are a Minister of Tourism, but I look like you are really passionate about the basketball too. Like I can see the EA Astamo's helmet and the basketball, why don't you tell us your passion about the sports and before we jump on to something else?
Sure. I grew up playing all kinds of sports, but as I'm pretty tall at 6'9", I gravitated towards basketball as I got more serious and competitive into it. That led to a scholarship in university in Canada. I played at Dalhousie University, and then I ended up playing overseas in England briefly, and then decided to come home. But basketball has always been, and sports have always been a large part of my life and my development, and I really enjoyed it. So as the Minister of Tourism and Sport, the shoe kind of fits pretty well.
No, one thing, I think you could not have a better portfolio. So, Joseph, you have been except, the height and your passion, you have always been involved in the sports, right? And now you have started a process, which basically a grant where the kids will be able to enjoy more outside world. So my first question to you is why it is important to providing a youth an opportunity to stay socially connected and develop their personality. You can bring your experience, how it helps you and what you'll...
Sure. Well, I think you made a good point about kids staying connected well. And after the COVID pandemic was over, the government introduced the Return to Play grant, which was a $4 million grant that helped offset the cost for registration fees for people to get them back out playing, youth out recreating and playing competitive sports. So we saw how successful that was, and we decided to expand that to $8 million and cover a couple of other things. So now we have the Every Kid Can Play grant. This is the second installment of the grant with this budget here currently. And what it does is it helps cover the cost of registration fees for families that are having financial difficulties. It also helps organizations and nonprofits in the community apply for money so that they can cover things like facility rentals, coach and referee training, and equipment rentals. So all around, it allows us to help more kids access sports, build that sense of community and connectivity. And I think it's a huge win for the province and for kids. And at the moment, we're expected this to support about 8,500 kids.
So Joseph, you did start talking about COVID, right? And then COVID basically developed a lot of, it was a problematic way because everyone stayed at home, stayed in the, front of the computer. And when we talk about the competitive sports, is basically, think about the kids which are, I should not be saying normal or regular, but, they're part of the system. But then we have also kids who are a bit diverse, a bit challenged, could be ADHD or any other issue. So how we can put them in this process also, because they are, because all the challenges they have, they are not good with the systematic, regulated, or you say, the process, like even could be swimming or, basketball,
Sure.
you said. It's very regulated. You have to follow the rules. But some kids, diverse kids, I should say, they are not good with that. So how we can bring them in the system also?
Well, I think all kids should have an opportunity to recreate or play competitive sports, whether it's organized or it's just playing outside. And so when we saw this opportunity to help kids in the community who have families that might be struggling financially, we thought it was a great chance to be a support system for them. Life is very expensive right now for a lot of people, well, for everyone. And we would hate for anyone to have to make the decision between putting groceries or buying groceries and putting food on the table or covering their mortgage payments or allowing their kids to go out and play sports. So we introduced this grant. It's for every kid. And that's why we call it Every Kid Can Play. And so regardless of any physical limitations that they might have, we feel that everyone is eligible for this grant who meets the income requirements.
So Joseph, my next question is, like you did talk about the grant, right? Is a perception, I'm just saying a perception because there's no facts behind it, right? When you apply for the grant, they're the big fishes, right? Like, they're established organization. But then we also have you are emerging nonprofit organization or societies who are working on a grassroots, especially with the new immigrants, could be South Asian, could be any other community, where they're trying to bring the kids who are kind of, misled or anything, to bring them back in the community or with the social, integration. What your perception or your thoughts are, like, when you are applying for a grant, the new organizations or, new small societies, usually they don't get anything because they don't have any built-in record. So how this grant how you will be helping everyone?
Well, that's just it. It does help everyone. So it's not just for larger organizations. We administer the Every Kid Can Play grant, the registration fee side of it, through Kids Sport. Their organization with strong ties to nonprofits throughout the entire province. And so they've been doing this for quite some time, and they have successfully delivered this grant. But in terms of organizations that are eligible, everyone is eligible to apply. It doesn't really prohibit anyone in particular. And we especially recognize that some organizations are smaller or they're emerging in their abilities to apply for these grants. So we don't think it's necessary that we should exclude anyone. So we want to make sure it's as inclusive as possible.
No, and my next question goes to, like when we talk about the parents, like you did mention, parents are struggling to pay the bills, right? Because of the because of that, could be recession, could be, the grocery being so expensive, husband and wife, both parents are working. And then timing, right? Like school, like the kids' school finish at 3 o'clock, but they are not home till 5:36. So, after school program, weekends. So how they can coordinate or how it will work, like picking up from the school, picking up, dropping time, snacks, uniforms, all those things.
Well, we leave the day-to-day operations to the local organizations that are applying for the funding. So as a government, we don't get overly involved, or really we don't get involved at all, actually, in the in kind of the minutia of the programs. We feel that they'd be best to administer that. So if you have an after-school program that applies for and successfully receives a grant, and it's a program that coordinates with kids when they get picked up from school, if the parents are at home, that's not something we would get involved with. We would be the ones who have allocated the money to this program. Kids Sport would be the one dispersing it to the programs for registration fees, and the organizations themselves would be the ones who'd be administering the programs at the ground level. So we don't get involved at that detailed level. We just want to make sure the funding is available for organizations and for families who need it most.
Joseph, is any specific sports you are sponsoring or they can eligible, or it could be like, because why I'm saying this, basketball, hockey, gymnastics, swimming are basically very standard, Canada-wide. But then we have new emerging sports also, could be taekwondo, could be cricket. Like, as you've been in England also, how crazy we can get about the cricket also. So all these funding is specific to any games, or it include every game?
It really includes everything. The registration fees have a cap at $300 per registrant. So if registration for swimming is $100 and registration for soccer or cricket is another 150, then you're coming close to your cap. But it doesn't preclude you from any particular sport. Again, that's administered through Kids Sport, so they make sure that the caps aren't exceeded on a per registered basis. But Alberta has a number of emerging sports, and you mentioned a couple. You mentioned cricket, and so those are really exciting sports to be supporting. And so whether it's cricket, hockey, basketball, soccer, football, if they have registration fees and the family meets the income requirement, then they're eligible to help cover those registration fees.
Joseph, now we are talking about, eligibility and time frame. Could you tell us more, and maybe in brief, how to apply, what the time frame is, if someone needs information? And the most important thing, are you planning any session, like information session, where the organizations can learn more about it and get, basic
Sure.
information of what documents are required?
Yeah, so our phone lines are always open as a government to take questions and calls from organizations about this grant program. But we also do have, you can go to kidsportcanada.ca/Alberta, and that's where you'd be able to apply for the actual registration fee portion. So, we always try to be as supportive as possible to make sure that anyone who has questions about the program is able to get those answered.
Joseph, thank you for taking your time. I know you are really busy. Do you have any message for our viewers?
Keep playing sports. It's great for development, and I'm a strong believer that healthy kids make healthy teens, make healthy adults, and recreation and organized or unorganized sports, but just getting outside is good for your body. It's good for your mind. And I encourage people to make sure they get outside. And if there's any other questions about this grant program, I encourage them to visit kidsportcanada.ca/Alberta for more information.
Thank you, Joseph. Thanks a lot for taking your time and giving information about the grant. I really appreciate. Keep up doing the good work. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Take care. Bye now.
Bye.